I am back with part 7 of my video series on bad officiating in the 2016 NCAA Championship game. This video will focus on inconsistency in the game's officiating. Being consistent or inconsistent in officiating is far different than being good or bad. First off, officiating can be either good or bad, and this depends on the calls being in line with the wording of the rules. When calls are being made and they have no justification in the rules, this is bad officiating. Likewise, when a certain type of foul is being committed and there is justification in the rules for calling a foul but no foul call happens, this is also bad officiating. Consistency is a different measure. When a call is being made at one end of the floor but the same thing happens at the other end of the floor and it doesn't get called, this is inconsistency. Likewise, when the officials make calls in the first half of a game but let them slide in the second half of the game, this too is inconsistency. By these two standards, 4 different grades of officiating can be made: consistently good, consistently bad, inconsistently good, and inconsistently bad. The ideal is consistently good, and is why it is shaded in green. Inconsistently bad is the worst, which is why it is shaded in red. All that remains is consistently bad and inconsistently good. While neither of these are acceptable, if I was a head coach in basketball, I would prefer consistently bad over inconsistently good. The logic is rather simple. Even though the officials would be making the wrong calls, they would be making them wrong for both teams, so all I have to do is adjust my players to play the way they are calling it. My videos up to this point have examined the title game's officiating in the context of the wording of the rules and illustrated them with video examples. In video 1 on traveling, video 3 on jab and contact, and video 6 on general illegal contact, I demonstrated bad officiating as calls that were described word for word in the rulebook as violations or fouls were not called in the game. In video 2 on two-hand contact, on video 4 in hand checking, and on video 5 on fouls from behind, I demonstrated inconsistent officiating as fouls that were called sometimes and ignored other times. This video will show more inconsistencies in the title game's officiating. In retrospect, I should have been more exact when naming my video series, since the officiating in the game was both bad and inconsistent. So let's get to the first example. Let's start with one of the easiest calls in the game, the illegal screen. An illegal screen is any contact with a teammate's defender without coming to a complete stop. In the first example, which happens under 1 minute to play in the first half, Villanova's Daniel Achefu comes from the side of the defender and sets a screen on the opposite side of the defender without coming to a complete stop. Let's have a look.
Mom, what she's thinking about?
This is Chris Jenkins, guarded by Theo Pinson.
They got Jackson now on Hart. He's got a size advantage.
Archie Diacono and a moving.
Easy call. Sadly, the exact same thing happened 10 minutes earlier in the game and it was not called. Not only that, the same official, John Higgins, that made the call in the first example completely ignores this call. Watch as Villanova's number 45 Reynolds sets the exact same type of screen as Achefu did, but he gets away with it.
Jalen Brunson, second straight baseline inbound play. They had a little trouble getting it in.
Just threw the ball over the top.
I have no clue how an official lets that call slide and then 10 minutes later decides that it is a foul. Let's look at another inconsistency, but this involves a reach-in on a post player. In the first example, North Carolina inbounds the ball from the baseline to Bryce Johnson in the post. He makes a spin over his left shoulder and takes a fadeaway jumper when the trailing defender doubles down on top of him and reaches in to foul.
He's been blanked. I'll tell you, guy that's got to get going. He's 1 for 4. Meeks has not been effective inside at all. And with that strength and body he has, he's got to be able to give him some points on the interior.
Bryce Johnson, first team All-American, fouled on a reach-in. Believe they're going to get
another easy call, this time by referee Michael Stevens. In this example, which occurs just 5 minutes of game time after the previous play, the exact same thing happens but no foul is called. And yes, it is the exact same thing. North Carolina is running the exact same inbounds play to get the ball to Bryce Johnson, and he makes the exact same move to the basket. Michael Stevens is the exact same referee observing the play. The only difference in this play is that Josh Hart is committing the reach-in foul on the double down.
He lobbed it into traffic for Hicks.
Tell you what, you being mild on that, sloppy. That was so unbelievably telegraphed.
8 empty trips in a row for North Carolina. 17-5 run for Jay Wright's Wildcats.
And that's unusual. North Carolina usually so efficient offensively.
Bryce Johnson, no. And now
I don't know if you were watching the early part of the clip into great detail, but just before that missed reach-in, there was a post-entry feed by North Carolina that Josh Hart deflected out of bounds. It was a very good defensive play, but what caught my attention was the friendly smile he shot towards the baseline official, Michael Stevens. I don't know if this had any influence on Michael Stevens not making this call, but I thought this interaction was worth pointing out. It's not every day that a player makes a kind gesture towards a referee, so you'd have to put yourselves in that situation and think if a kind gesture would make you swallow your whistle. After all, referees are human. Let's look at another inconsistency, and this one happened throughout the game. In fact, it's probably the most inconsistent call throughout the college basketball season. It involves the block charge call. In the first 2 minutes of the game, Marcus Page drives from the right wing to the baseline and takes a floater. The defender does not get to the spot before Page leaves the floor, and Page releases the shot well before any contact between he and the defender occurs. With these details, I'd have to say blocking foul, which is exactly what Michael Stevens called in the game. Let's have a look.
Remember this about Meeks. Meeks has shot 11 for 13 in the last 2 games, and nobody talks about him.
Page, a little floater that popped out. Blocking foul, the call underneath the basket. Chris Jenkins of Villanova called for his first foul.
As Page with the drive, he's an outstanding free throw shooter, one of the best in the history of North Carolina.
In the next example, which occurs with about 7 minutes remaining in the first half, North Carolina's Justin Jackson drives baseline, taking a floater, and Villanova's Archie Diacono tries to draw the charge. It does appear that Jackson leaves his feet before Archie Diacono is set, yet this time there is no whistle from Terry Weimer, who happens to be on the baseline for this play. You would think with that many bodies that end up lying on the floor at the end of the play that something would have been called.
Jackson might have deflected that shot by Hart. They're still tangled up.
Tell you one thing, that should open it up for the interior, plus it makes the defense extend themselves.
Jackson, the floater, and the tip try by Kennedy Meeks. 3 Wildcats hit the...
In the third example, which occurs with about 4 minutes remaining in the second half, again North Carolina's Justin Jackson drives baseline and Villanova's Mikal Bridges tries to draw the charge. Jackson not only leaves his feet before Bridges is set, but Jackson also drifts toward the baseline as if he's trying to avoid the contact. A charge can only occur when the offensive player attempts to go through the defender. With Jackson trying to avoid contact, I would say the greater responsibility is on the defender, which would make this a blocking foul. Yet it seems as though referee John Higgins is not interested in calling anything.
Using that shot, using that clock.
Hart blocked. Both Johnson and Hicks went up to contest it. Justin Jackson underneath. Hicks. And Johnson the dunk. The Carolina bench thought Hicks was fouled on the previous shot. They didn't get a whistle. But Johnson was there, and a timeout called by North Carolina.
Well, they like the result right there better, getting the offensive rebound, and that's their strength. Get on the glass. Offensively, utilize that size. There's the block shot. Look at the block shot right there. Well, from the help side, and on the other end, Jackson dumps it inside. Hicks can't.
Career for making big plays at the biggest moments. These will be the biggest 4 minutes and 11 seconds of his basketball life. That's how far he would be away from being...
3 baseline drives from the right wing with 3 late defenders. When one referee sees a foul and the other 2 members of the crew do not, inconsistency is just the tip of the iceberg. With this next set of plays, we are about to see just how deep that iceberg really is. In the first play, Villanova's Daniel Ochefu receives a bounce pass from Phil Booth when North Carolina's Theo Pinson moves to knock it loose from him, and Kennedy Meeks tries to tie up the possession. Let's watch what happens.
It'll be the 20th in the history of Villanova University in all sports. They were a track and field and cross-country power for many years. Ochefu in traffic, then another North Carolina foul.
I'll tell you what, you can feel Uncle Mo has really rotated over the Villanova's side. There's the play, little physical play right here.
Kennedy Meeks called for the third. The players and fans getting very frustrated. I mean, there's 12 minutes to go.
We can see from this still image that referee Michael Stevens has his view of this play completely obstructed by Ochefu's body, but Stevens manages to somehow see a foul anyways. This next clip is the same play from the baseline camera, and we are about to see just how bad of a call Michael Stevens just made.
And once again, Raph, beautiful pass, a nice little tie-up.
Initially, I thought it should have been a jump ball.
Almost 30 seconds after this play, the exact same thing happens at the other end of the court, and Michael Stevens makes a completely different call from the exact same vantage point. It is inexplicable. Watch and see.
The tough shot and a great offensive rebound by Isaiah Hicks, the junior from Oxford, North Carolina. Britt spinning in the lane, way off, batted around. Meeks couldn't score, has it back. A whistle for a held ball, and it'll go over to the Villanova Wildcats.
Well, look at the frustration. He dropped his head. He gave a great effort, Kennedy Meeks. I mean, he battled the battle, and it wasn't to be made. Watch this right now. He's going to fight and scrap on the inside. Stays with it. Good defense right there by Jenkins.
Even this slow motion view from the baseline shows that this is more of a foul than the previous play because it is a reach in from behind. Yet Michael Stevens somehow sees a jump ball instead of a foul. I wish I could explain how the same referee calls the same exact play two completely different ways just 30 seconds apart. I don't think J.D. Collins, the head of NCAA officiating, could even explain this difference, but I guarantee you if I was in his job I'd make sure Michael Stevens never made that mistake again because he would never be refereeing again. But this concludes the 7th installment of this video series. I have the details of these 4 inconsistencies and their impact on the outcome of the game detailed on this score sheet. Feel free to pause the video if you want to read them. As always, thank you for watching my video, and I hope you will watch the next one.